Welcome to another episode of the Freedom Filled Life. In this episode, we're looking at Marshall County, Alabama. So let's see what kind of history we can find about Marshall County, Alabama. I'm sure there's lots to be found. Here we are in Arab, Alabama. This is the 1883 Methodist Church Cemetery. A congregation of the Methodist Episcopal Church North erected a log church, possibly named Pleasant Hill Methodist Church, adjacent to this cemetery in 1883. The church served as Arab's first school. The earliest marked grave is 1883, though older unmarked graves are likely present. In 1897, the congregation moved to Union Hill. The cemetery continued to be used into the early 1940s by the Methodist Episcopal Church South, founded in 1892, which later became First United Methodist Church. Buried are the town founder, Stephen Tuttle, Thompson, and other early settlers of the area. Civil War veterans, including Confederate Private James L. McWhirter and Union Captain James Walter Elliott, are also found here. So if we look around, you can see this is definitely a very old cemetery. Here we are in Arab, Alabama for the First Baptist Church. Founded on September 5th, 1912 by 40 charter members, First Baptist Church is the second oldest church located within Arab's original town limits of 1 square mile. The church was first located just off South Main Street on Fry Gap Road. The Reverend M.P. Taylor, who had previously served for many years at nearby Shoal Creek Baptist Church, was the first pastor. Citizens instrumental in the establishment of First Baptist Church included W.P. Squire Marsh and R.J. Riddle, both prominent early settlers and mayors of Arab. When the former building was damaged by a tornado in 1923, the present site was purchased from J.M. Cotton for $300. And a new frame church was erected. The congregation replaced it with a substantial brick church in 1948 that served until 1989 when the present sanctuary was finished. And then here's the church today. This is the First United Methodist Church in Arab, Alabama. It's founded in 1892 under the leadership of Reverend B.O.H. Cochran. This is the oldest church congregation inside Arab's original town limits of 1 square mile. 28 names were listed on the church's original membership roll. Affiliated with the Methodist Episcopal Church South, the members built a wooden structure located on 1st Avenue Northwest in 1893. This building housed the Masonic Hall upstairs and the church services downstairs. A second frame building was erected some years later. A larger brick church was built in 1937. The church consecrated a new sanctuary at this location in May of 2000. Town founder Stephen Tuttle Thompson and Arab's first school teacher, Union Army Captain James Walter Elliott, served in many offices of the church from its founding until their deaths. One of their contemporaries and a former Confederate leader, the Reverend M.E. Bushwhacker Johnston, pastored the church during the 1890s and was said to have removed his 2 guns and placed them on the pulpit while he preached. And then here's the church building itself. And then they have a nice sign here up front. Here's the sign for Gilliam Springs Baptist Church in Arab, Alabama. Gilliam Springs Baptist Church was founded by 9 charter members on November 25, 1882, under the leadership of Reverend P.J. Corley in the Gilliam Springs School. The log school was located on the east side of North Main Street in the vicinity of Brookwood Drive and 10th Avenue. In 1884, the congregation erected a log church building at this location. A brick church was constructed in 1934, and several additions were added beginning in the early 1960s. Gilliam Springs Baptist Church is older than First United Methodist and First Baptist churches, but was built outside the limits of the original town of Arab. It was annexed in the 1970s, thus becoming the oldest church in Arab. And here's the church today. This marker in Arab, Alabama is for Bear Meat Cabin Road. Starting as an ancient Indian trail, the north-south road through Arab in 1860 was known as Bear Meat Cabin Road. By 1818, it had become an important federal trade route through the Alabama Territory known as the St. Stephen's-Huntsville Road. Designated as a post road in 1822, it became the main mail route between New Orleans and Cincinnati, over which Alabama's first stage line traveled. Philip Clack received a state charter to operate the section through Arab as Clack's Turnpike. With the opening of the Tennessee River Bridge at Whitesburg in 1929, the road again became an important north-south route through Alabama. During the 1940s, it was known as the Florida Short Route. By 1945, it was paved and became Federal Highway 231, known as the Heart of Dixie Highway. The Arab bypass was built in 1960, and the highway from Arab to Whitesburg was widened to 4 lanes in 1970. We're here in downtown Arab, Alabama, and this is the Farmers Exchange. The Farmers Exchange was a focal point of commerce during the early years of the young town of Arab. Farmers exchanged their corn, eggs, butter, hides, and other agricultural products for a barrel of flour, a stand of lard, or other groceries. William Bill Harrison operated the exchange in this building beginning about 1933, although the structure may be older. Basil Cobb began working here while still in high school during the early 1930s. His uncle, L.D. Cobb, bought the business from Mr. Harrison about 1939. Basil Cobb continued to work at the Farmers Exchange and later purchased it, operating it until his retirement in 1982. In 1945, Harrison sold the building, but not the business, to Myra Leake Hammond family, who owned it until 1999. And then here's the building. It looks like it's still selling things today. In front of the Stephen Tuttle Thompson Park is the Stephen Tuttle Thompson marker from 1832 to 1912. Indirectly responsible for the naming of this town, Stephen Tuttle Thompson was born February 22nd, 1832 in Ray County, Tennessee. He moved to West Marshall County with his parents about 1840 and relocated in 1858 to what became Thompson's Village and later the town of Arab. Named Arab's first postmaster in 1882, he was required to submit 3 proposed names for the new post office to the U.S. Postal Department. Desiring that the postal office be named after his son, Ranson Arid Riley Thompson, he submitted Ink, Bluebird, and Arad. The Postal Department chose Arad, but as a result of a clerical error in Washington, D.C., it was misspelled Arab. Stephen Tuttle Thompson also served as deputy tax assessor and as a county commissioner. Elected on the Republican ticket, Thompson's son, J.R.N. Thompson, became the first mayor when Arab was incorporated in 1892. Much of the original town of Arab now stands on land that was formerly the Thompson family farm. Stephen Tuttle Thompson died March 1st, 1912, and is buried in the Methodist Church Cemetery. Here's a little park with a statue of Stephen Tuttle Thompson. On the ground here are several things. First one here is a procurement of this property for the establishment of a public park, and the casting of the Stephen Tuttle Thompson statue were substantially underwritten by a grant from Citizens Bank and Trust. Construction of the Stephen Tuttle Thompson Park was made possible by the generous gifts from the following benefactors. And then the Stephen Tuttle Thompson Park was dedicated June 5th, 2008, and constructed as a project of the Arab Historical Preservation Committee of the City of Arab. And this marker is for Sidney, Leighton, McDonald, Arabs, citizen for half a century, May 18, 1838 to May 15, 2015. In memoriam, Sid McDonald, a vigorous entrepreneur, philanthropist, and public servant, is honored here as Arab's first citizen for half a century, as proclaimed by Mayor Bob Joslin and the Arab City Council on May 11, 2017. Sid's unprecedented vision and cumulative contributions richly impacted lives in this community and throughout Alabama for more than 50 years. The legacy of these gifts will continue to bring value to its citizens for many future generations. Sid spearheaded the creation of the Arab City School System, funded the Arab Board of Education building, built new shopping venues, expanded local telephone service, and developed impressive residential communities in and around the city. He was an ardent supporter of arts in the city schools and donated Arab's first pipe organ. The Infusion Center at Marshall Cancer Center bears his name, as does the administrative building of the University of Alabama System in Tuscaloosa. Sid served for 12 years as a state representative and state senator, and he is a member of the Alabama Business Hall of Fame and the Alabama Academy of Honor. He served 16 years on the Board of Trustees of the University of Alabama. The quote of Daniel Burnham, which hung on his office wall, proclaimed, "Make no little plans." Such was the life and legacy of Sid McDonald. His vision for Arab and for Alabama was always to think bigger and act better. Over a half a century, he did both on behalf of his hometown of Arab, Alabama. This marker is for the Shoal Creek Baptist Church. This church was founded on March 4th, 1886 by charter members R.J. Riddle, Julie Riddle, W.J. Wright, A.M. Preston, W.B. Scott, and F.E. Scott. It was named after Shoal Creek, which rises up less than a mile from the church grounds and empties into the Tennessee River near Paint Rock Bluff. Before the original building was erected in 1887, services were held under a brush arbor. The present sanctuary was built in 1956, the Education Building in 1979, and the Fellowship Hall in 1993. Shoal Creek's first pastor was P.M. Thompson. Montgomery K. Taylor, another of the church's early pastors, served here for 30 years. He also served as the first pastor of Arab First Baptist during his term at Shoal Creek. As he had requested during his tenure, he was laid to rest behind the church in the grave plot closest to the pulpit. And here is the church today. And you can see the cemetery behind. This marker, also in Marshall County, is in Brashier's Chapel Cemetery. Brashier's Chapel community was named for Hiram Brashier, who immigrated from South Carolina in 1885 and settled near the present-day Brashier's Chapel Cemetery. The oldest grave dates back to 1866 and is for Mary Tuttle, the maternal grandmother of Stephen Tuttle Thompson, the founder of Arab. In 1891, Mariah C. Brashier sold an acre of land that formerly established this site as a community cemetery. Most of the people buried here are linked by blood or marriage, and their lives tell the history of this area. Among those buried here are veterans of the Civil War, World Wars I and II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. Brashier's Chapel Cemetery is recognized as having historical significance in this area and was added to the Alabama Historic Cemetery Register by the Alabama Historical Commission on April 17, 2012. And here's the cemetery. We're in Marshall County outside of Guntersville, and this is for Bodine Cemetery. Bodine Cemetery is located 100 yards south of here and an area of Browns Valley set aside in the Indian Treaty of 1816. About 1830, James and Catherine Butler Bodine moved to these rich farmlands from Sevier County, Tennessee, where their French ancestors had settled via New York, New Jersey, and Virginia. Some descendants went west from Browns Valley to Texas. Burials began in 1836 and continue today for Bodine family members. Graves are marked by primitive fieldstones, old marble, and modern granite. Some graves are unmarked. War of 1812, Civil War, World War I, World War II, and Korean War service is noted. This marker in Marshall County is for the Claysville Junior High School. Claysville School was born of a community pride and the tireless labor of the people. Built on 5 acres, bought for $2 per acre from C.W. Baird, Sarah Baird, and H.D. Walls, Claysville School was completed on February 19, 1929. Led by future Claysville principal Carl Waldrop, students and others from the community helped to carry the stones from the surrounding mountain ridges that were used to construct the $14,000 fieldstone building. The first 4 classrooms and an auditorium were built by A.M. Allred with monetary donations and much of the labor supplied by the people. Construction of the Guntersville Dam and its accompanying relocation of people in that area increased the population of the Claysville community, resulting in the consolidation of the schools at Baker's Chapel in Henryville. By 1950, indoor restrooms and 5 classrooms had been added, as well as a lunchroom. By 2003, the campus had grown to 2 classroom buildings, an activities building, a lunchroom, and a gymnasium on 22.5 acres. Although many teachers, support employees, and generations of students have walked these halls since the school's first day, pride in the community and the school has not waned. This pride and unending community support have accompanied the evolution of the 1928 fledgling school to the present school nestled on the banks of the beautiful Guntersville Reservoir. And here's the school, still made of all of the rocks. This marker is for the Federal attack at Red Hill. On January 15, 1865, an early morning clash occurred here on the Thomas Noble Farm between Federal forces led by Colonel William J. Palmer's 15th Pennsylvania Cavalry of 180 men and Confederate General Highland B. Lyon's 250 men from 2 Kentucky Cavalry brigades of the 3rd, 7th, 12th, 16th, and Cypress regiments. Over 100 Confederates were taken prisoners, including General Lyon, who managed to escape by shooting Federal Sergeant Arthur Peace Lyon, no relation, and escaping out a back window. In retaliation for the death of Sergeant Lyon, a popular Federal soldier, the Yankees burned most of the plantations and other farms as they marched north along Browns Valley to the Tennessee River. Later that day, Federal gunboats Grant, Sherman, and Burnside put Marines ashore and burned most of the buildings in Fort Deposit, including several stores and the Methodist church. The Fennel house was spared because the Fennel family was preparing meals for the Yankee soldiers. At noon, the same boats were dispatched to burn the town of Guntersville, where all but 7 buildings were laid to ashes. The captured Confederates were taken to the Federal prison at Camp Chase, Ohio. Many died of illness, starvation, and exposure due to the harsh winter weather. Colonel Palmer received the Medal of Honor for his actions on the attack at Red Hill. So thank you for watching another episode of Historical Markers on the Freedom Field Life. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in future episodes.